Answered in kind. 16. Quos Deus Perdere, Prius Dementat. Touch not the electric wire of animosity. When a religion, a movement, or a conspiracy persuades you to dehumanize another, it has not awakened you. It has enclosed you. What masquerades as revelation is often merely a more ornate prison. Its bars gilded with rhetoric, its locks disguised as certainty. Awakening expands perception, imprisonment narrows it. One enlarges the field of vision, the other forces the eyes into a tunnel so tight that only threat remains visible. This narrowing is not accidental. Animosity is not a spontaneous combustion of the human spirit. It is cultivated, curated, electrified. It is induced through repetition, distortion, selective amplification, and the calculated stimulation of the amygdala, the most ancient alarm bell of the nervous system. And today, this bell is rung incessantly, not only on television, not only through news platforms, but through the devices pressed warm against our palms. The modern media environment is not merely informational, it is neurological. It does not simply report events, it trains reflexes. It does not merely describe danger, it manufactures perpetual imminence. And in such an environment, animosity becomes an electric wire laid bare across the collective psyche. Grip it long enough, and the senses fry. Judgment calcifies, subtlety dies, and the very vitality one believes they are defending begins to hemorrhage. Animosity is an electric current, and many have mistaken it for strength. But strength does not convulse. Power does not require constant discharge, and clarity does not scream. To clutch animosity ceaselessly is to bleed life force without noticing the wound. It drains patience, erodes discernment, and replaces comprehension with compulsion. The body remains upright, but the spirit contracts. One becomes reactive rather than responsive, brittle rather than resilient. And here we must pause and name something difficult. This animosity is rarely summoned by the people we are taught to fear. If we are, as so many traditions proclaim, brothers and sisters sharing one fragile world, children of the same breath, animated by the same inexplicable spark, then enemies are not intrinsic, they are manufactured. And if animosity is not required by reality, then it is being requisitioned for use. Human beings are being converted into tools. When fear is amplified, people become predictable. When outrage is sustained, people become steerable. When identity fuses with grievance, people become expendable. And if you are not the one behind the helm, the operator at the invisible wheel, then who is steering your ship? and are you headed into an iceberg? And this is why animosity is so useful to agendas that cannot withstand scrutiny in the light of calm, patient thought. Animosity is a closed circuit. It feeds on itself, like the Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail. It generates motion without progress, heat without illumination. The more it consumes, the hungrier it becomes. The more it promises resolution, the more it postpones peace. There is another way, but you will not perceive it while gripping the wire. Let the tension snap back like a released rubber band. Let the stored charge discharge harmlessly into the soil. Let the animosity become compost rather than currency. What you bury consciously can fertilize wisdom. What you clutch unconsciously will poison perception. I have observed a deeper rift, one that often escapes peripheral awareness. When one person hurls barbs to destabilize another in order to stabilize themselves, an energetic exchange occurs. This is not mysticism, it is psychology. It is the economy of insecurity. A threatened identity seeks ballast by exporting its tremor outward. And when millions do this simultaneously, when fear is synchronized and resentment harmonized, the result is not unity, but orchestration. And you are no tuba. Division becomes self-perpetuating. People believe they are choosing hostility, while in truth they are being harvested by it. Many have been persuaded that the expulsion of the vulnerable is synonymous with the elevation of the nation, that cruelty can masquerade as caretaking, that the ripping apart of families is a regrettable but necessary byproduct of order. But this is a catastrophic miscalculation. There are innumerable ways to strengthen a society that do not involve the ritual degradation of human dignity. To avert the eyes from senseless violence, from the severing of children from caretakers, from the normalization of suffering as administrative collateral. This is not pragmatism. It is moral myopia. It is to miss the mark so profoundly that the alarm bells do not merely ring, they fracture. Even the most transparent truths have been twisted until they resemble their opposites. Peaceful people are recast as threats. Compassion is reframed as weakness, and restraint is mocked as naivete. Meanwhile, children, always the most sensitive barometers of collective failure, are harmed in ways both visible and subtle, while adults debate abstractions and call it patriotism. This is not life-affirming. This is not protective. This is not pro-anything except power without conscience. To invoke free will while violating the freedom of others is a contradiction so stark it borders on farce. Free will is not a license to dominate. it is a responsibility to refrain. It sanctifies choice. It does not sanctify coercion. To wrench another's autonomy as though it were a toy is not strength. It is desperation dressed in authority. And consequences, real consequences, still exist. The electric fence remains live. It is not imposed from outside. It is generated from within. It is the psychic recoil that follows the sustained violation of empathy. It is the numbing that follows prolonged cruelty. It is the hardening that eventually makes joy inaccessible. Fear is not the peace of God. Panic is not discernment. Hatred is not vigilance. And animosity is not protection. If you have been gripping the wire long enough, you may forget that gentler instruments ever existed. You may forget that clarity can be quiet, that strength can be supple, that order can coexist with mercy. But I assure you, there is a better way. From the full measure of all the love I am, from all the love of my being, I have seen how animosity is being weaponized against those who wield it. And I have seen how people are maneuvered into hating on cue, then discarded once their usefulness wanes. I have seen how certain eyes conceal calculation, not because their owners are monstrous, but because they have mistaken strategy for truth. Those with nothing to hide do not need to obscure. Those grounded in truth do not need to repel inquiry. And those aligned with life do not need to anesthetize compassion. We recognize distortion not by moral panic, but by resonance. We sense it in tone, in cadence, in the absence of curiosity. We taste it in the after effect, contraction rather than expansion, vigilance rather than vitality. This is not about labeling anyone wicked. It is about recognizing when guidance has been replaced by manipulation, when belonging has been traded for obedience, and when fear has been enthroned as virtue. Many have mistaken the lie for the life, and yet, even now, the remedy is astonishingly simple. Release the wire. Restore circulation. Let awareness widen. What is not fed will wither. What is seen clearly will soften. And what is rooted in love will outlast every agenda that depends on division. Touch not the electric wire of animosity, not because you are forbidden, but because you are free. And freedom does not need voltage to announce itself. Praise love and pass the compassion. I am that I am.